Hey guys, this is Emma Verdun coming to you from Texas. Today we are going to discuss some of the ethical violations and board disciplinary actions taken against a licensed professional counselor in Texas. So the four top violations had to do with dual relationships, failure to report abuse, proper release of mental health records, and failure to turn in supervisor forms to the board. Some of the common disciplinary actions that were taken had to do with fines that ranged anywhere from $500 to $2,000, some probationary time, and for the more severe situations that usually when I was able to see that a license was revoked or taken away, it had more to do with they had been given a warning and did not comply with the things that the board asked them to do, the counselor asked them to do. So some of the themes that we're looking at here are dual relationships. From 2006 to present, the highest amount of violations that I saw whereas around dual relationships at 158. The second highest was failure to report abuse, which was at 50 on that website. I was most surprised to see that the second highest number had to do with failure to report abuse. As a teacher, or as a prior teacher in my classroom, being able to identify when a child was being neglected or experiencing some form of abuse was fairly straightforward. It takes a matter of active listening, good follow-up questions, and making sure that you actually, within the next 24 hours or immediately, depending on how severe it is, report it to the authorities. So I was a little bit surprised when I saw that LPCs were struggling in this area. I would think it would be easier to be able to clearly identify whether or not there was concern for abuse and neglect, and you have an even higher calling as an LPC, just morally, also to report that. The case that I focused on related to the LPC's failure to set and maintain professional boundaries by entering into a dual relationship with 3 minor clients. The Texas code violation was Chapter 681.41, and tracking back the correlating ACA Code of Ethics violations was with A.5 and A.6, which all speak to different degrees of dual relationship violations. The board disciplined this LPC by giving them 1 year of probated suspension. So, dual relationships are a really big deal. One of the things that I learned through looking at all 158 of the violations was that these dual relationships, a lot of those 158 did not have to do with a romantic relationship. So then I wanted to dive a little bit deeper into this, and I read Gabrielle Syme's book, In Dual Relationships in Counseling and Psychotherapy, Exploring the Limits, Chapter 9. Her research found evidence that non-sexual dual relationships can be as abusive as sexual ones, meaning the emotional and psychological impact mirrors that of the sexual dual relationship. So we really need to listen to how significantly damaging this is to our clients. Now that we know what a big deal it is, or me, I know what a big deal it is, I'm asking myself, what am I going to do about it? So what I'm going to do about it is I'm going to keep reading this Chapter 9, and that's what I did. So there are marked differences in characteristics on those who benefit from a deeper relationship, a more extended relationship with their client, and those who did not. And we're, again, speaking outside of romantic anything. We're not talking about that. So some of the clients who exhibited characteristics that led to this being more damaging were the clients who had difficulty sustaining their sense of self in various relationship roles. They appeared to be unable to say no to the therapist specifically and they were unable to assert their rights and concerns or problems within the session or within that relationship with the counselor, whether it's in the session or not. Those who gained most were sufficiently personally empowered to be able to fully enter into and intervene and challenge the therapist within the therapeutic relationship and that same therapist that in an overlapping role. So in other words, they could advocate what they thought, what they felt, and why. They probably did not have an issue with confronting or being involved in any type of conflict. So going back to the case that I focused on where the counselor had dual relationships with these 3 minor clients, when you first read that, you can decide to think the worst and take a scandalistic type thought or imaginary process there. But I thought more of, this is a mama bear who really, really cares for these young 3 kids and has walked along with them through their hurt and triumphed with them through their healing and has gotten too close. And I can see that being an issue for a lot of us, especially when we're working with kiddos, hurting kiddos. So my question to you guys is, how does a therapist working with a mother and her children who are all survivors of abuse in a small community, how does this therapist maintain healthy boundaries with those minor clients? For example, the children become super attached and they really want their counselor to be at their birthday party. Or their counselor has kids who they're already friends with at school and at church, and they've already had sleepovers. Do the sleepovers stop between the kiddos? Do the birthday party invites stop being given and stop being accepted? What's the best way to set a healthy boundary for the counselor and the client and their families in these situations? Thanks, guys. Have a good night.